The Galactic Council, a bastion of order and unity in a fragmented galaxy, sat in solemn assembly. Its towering chambers, built from the shimmering crystals of a long-dead star, symbolized their centuries-long dominion. Representatives of countless species, with forms as varied as imagination allowed, debated the issue that had shaken their foundations: the humans. Once, humans had been a curiosity, a fledgling species from a peripheral arm of the galaxy. But their rapid ascent had taken the galaxy by surprise. In less than a century, they had gone from tentative explorers to masters of warfare, outmatching even the most ancient civilizations. The Council had assumed humanity would integrate into their order, as most young species did, dazzled by the promise of interstellar peace and prosperity. Instead, humanity had turned its back on the Council's diplomacy. Worse, they had begun a campaign of destruction that rivaled any of the galaxy's darkest wars. "This is madness," a serpentine emissary hissed, their scales shimmering under the chamber's light. Entire fleets annihilated. Planets reduced to ash. "They are not a species. They are a virus," another voice, deep and resonant, countered. And yet they were provoked. Their initial aggression was retaliation against the Korric Dominion, a former council member. "Have we forgotten who first broke the accords?" Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Korric's betrayal of humanity decades ago had been a black mark on the Council's history. The humans had been naive then, trusting the Dominion's promises of trade and mutual aid. Instead, the Dominion had laid waste to Earth, seeking to exploit its resources. The Council had intervened too late, offering little more than hollow condemnations. "But their vengeance has spiraled beyond reason," a feathered diplomat squawked, slamming their clawed appendage on the crystalline table. "They hunt relentlessly. Their war machines do not sleep, and their soldiers fight as if death is a trivial inconvenience. If they cannot be stopped, no species is safe." The Council's presiding voice, a towering, translucent being whose form pulsed with light, brought order to the debate. "We cannot undo the past, but we can shape the future. Humanity must be made to see reason. We will send them a final directive: cease hostilities and join the Council's fold, or face our combined might." This proclamation silenced the chamber, though unease lingered. Humanity had already defied every warning issued. Even when confronted with fleets that dwarfed their own, they had fought with a ferocity that bordered on the suicidal. And they had won. The presiding being continued, its voice resonating with authority. "Let it be clear, we do not act out of malice, but necessity. If they reject our peace, we must respond with strength. Their existence threatens the balance we have maintained for millennia." The session concluded with a solemn vote. The message would be sent to humanity's leaders, a final plea for peace. But as the Council members dispersed, whispers of doubt lingered in the chamber's echoes. Could peace be imposed on a species that thrived in chaos? Could the Council's unity withstand the firestorm humanity had become? For all their wisdom and power, the answer eluded them. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on the bridge of humanity's flagship, Vanguard's Wrath, as the war room hummed with the controlled chaos of interstellar strategy. Encased in steel and glowing interfaces, the air was heavy with tension, the kind that followed humanity wherever it marched. The Council's ultimatum was played aloud, its carefully measured tones calling for an end to the hostilities that had gripped the galaxy. The words were as polished as the crystalline halls they came from, full of appeals to reason and unity. General Adrian Kessler leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Around him, a team of officers monitored holographic displays, updating casualty numbers and fleet movements. The Council's message ended, and silence filled the room. For a moment, the only sounds were the faint hum of the ship's engines and the steady rhythm of distant alarms. Then Kessler spoke, his voice cold and resolute. "Peace," he said, as if the word itself was a bitter joke. They think we want their peace? No one answered. They all knew the story. Earth was a ruin, its surface an uninhabitable wasteland. Billions dead, its cradle shattered by alien greed masquerading as diplomacy. Kessler's eyes flicked to a corner of the room, where a digital display cycled through images of humanity's past. Earth before the destruction, cities alive with light and culture. And then the aftermath. Craters where metropolises had once stood, skies choked with ash. They talk of balance, Kessler continued, his tone sharp now. The council stood idle while Earth burned. They talk of unity, but when we begged for help, they sent only words. And now they expect us to kneel? A junior officer, her face grim, ventured to speak. They don't understand us, sir. They think this is about revenge. Kessler turned to her, his expression softening slightly. It's not about revenge. It's about ensuring this never happens again. They destroyed our home. Now, we will make the galaxy our home. And we will hunt anyone who stands in our way. The room erupted into activity as the officers took his words as a command. Fleet formations were adjusted, supply lines optimized, new targets identified. Humanity's war effort was not a chaotic spree of destruction. It was precise, calculated, and methodical. It was survival elevated to an art form. In the middle of the chaos, Kessler stared at the holographic projection of the Council's fleet positions. They were vast, yes, but predictable. Alien civilizations relied on tradition, on strategies forged in millennia of relative stability. Humanity, on the other hand, had evolved under constant threat, forced to innovate with every battle. Where others saw overwhelming odds, humans saw opportunity. We've outthought them every step of the way, Kessler muttered, almost to himself. We've turned their strengths into weaknesses. We've survived where we shouldn't have, and now they think they can stop us with words. Someone laughed, a dry, humorless sound. It wasn't joy, but defiance. It was the sound of a species that had been pushed to the brink and found strength in the abyss. The hunt has only just begun, Kessler said, his voice low, but carrying across the room. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because we have to. And if they think they can take that away from us, they'll learn just how wrong they are. No one questioned him. The fleet was ready, and so was the species it represented. Humanity didn't want war, but it was built for it. And the galaxy was about to learn once again what that truly meant. The Council's fleet had gathered in the Orthus Nebula, a glittering expanse of cosmic light that would soon become a battlefield. Hundreds of ships, representing dozens of species, floated in perfect formation. They were a sight to behold, a testament to the Council's unity and power. Armored leviathans, bristling with weapons, stood alongside agile fighters, their energy signatures forming a luminous web across the void. The Council's admirals believed this show of force would deter even humanity. Their fleets outnumbered the humans 5-1. Their ships were equipped with technologies older than humanity's entire existence. The confidence of the Council was absolute. They didn't just expect victory. They expected annihilation of their opponent. Then the humans arrived. The first indication was the silence. Humanity's fleet didn't broadcast messages, nor did it send emissaries or warnings. They simply emerged from the depths of subspace, their sleek black ships cutting through the nebula like predatory shadows. At first glance, their fleet seemed unimpressive. Fewer ships, smaller in size, with none of the ornate designs that alien civilizations favored. But there was something unnerving about their presence. Each vessel was a construct of brutal efficiency, their hulls absorbing and scattering light, making them hard to track. And while the Council's ships radiated power, the human ships seemed to promise death. The Council's flagship hailed the human fleet, repeating their demand to stand down. No response came. The humans didn't need words. They answered with action. The first strike came in a flash of light and soundless destruction. A Council destroyer, its shields active and weapons primed, disintegrated in an instant. The other ships scrambled to identify the source, but the human fleet was already in motion. Their tactics were unlike anything the Council had faced before. Human ships moved erratically, exploiting the gaps in the Council's formation. They deployed AI-driven drones that mimicked the energy signatures of full-sized warships, creating chaos among the Council's ranks. They hacked into targeting systems, causing friendly ships to fire upon each other. The battlefield became a labyrinth of deception, and the Council's admirals quickly realized they were not fighting an enemy. They were being hunted. The humans' weapons were devastatingly efficient. Railguns accelerated slugs at near-light speed, puncturing through shields and hulls with ease. Missile salvos split apart mid-flight, revealing smaller projectiles that overwhelmed defenses. The Council's fleets, designed for large-scale engagements, struggled to adapt to humanity's relentless, asymmetric warfare. Panic began to set in. Alien commanders, accustomed to centuries of predictable combat, faltered under the weight of humanity's unorthodox strategies. Messages of retreat flooded the Council's communication channels, but the humans had anticipated this. They had already encircled the fleet, cutting off escape routes and systematically dismantling the once mighty armada. From the Vanguard's wrath, General Kessler watched the chaos unfold. His officers worked with calm precision, executing maneuvers that had been planned weeks in advance. To them, the battle was not a clash of equals. It was the inevitable conclusion of humanity's preparation. The final blow came when the Council's flagship was disabled. Its engines went dark, its shields collapsed, and its communications were silenced. The remaining ships surrendered or fled, their crews haunted by the knowledge that they had been utterly outmatched. Kessler ordered a single message broadcast to the surviving Council vessels. It was simple, direct, and left no room for misinterpretation. The galaxy belongs to those willing to fight for it. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. The battlefield was silent now, the wreckage of the Council's once mighty fleet drifting aimlessly through the Orthus Nebula. Human salvage crews worked efficiently, extracting valuable materials and data from the shattered remains of alien ships. Victory had been absolute, and yet there was no celebration aboard Vanguard's wrath. This was not triumph, it was inevitability. General Kessler stood in the command center, watching as reports flooded in from across the fleet. The humans had lost some ships, but the damage was minimal compared to the devastation they had inflicted. A grim satisfaction settled over him as he reviewed the final numbers. They had won as he knew they would, but the cost wasn't measured in ships or lives. It was in what humanity was becoming. In the cold vacuum of space, ideals like mercy and restraint had no place. Kessler understood that. Humanity had been forged in the fires of annihilation, tempered into something the galaxy couldn't comprehend. They had sacrificed their innocence to ensure survival. The Council had underestimated them, thinking humans could be cowed by diplomacy or crushed by force. They hadn't realized that the same instincts that drove humans to war also made them masters of it. The Council's surviving members scattered like prey, broadcasting pleas for ceasefires and negotiations. Kessler ignored them. They would come to the table when humanity allowed it, and only on humanity's terms. The Council had lost the right to dictate peace. On the bridge, a young officer approached, her expression a mix of pride and unease. "Sir, reports indicate that several Council worlds are already sending envoys, requesting alliances. Others are fortifying their defenses." Kessler nodded, unsurprised. Fear is a language everyone understands. Let them adapt however they like. It won't change the outcome. The officer hesitated. And the Council itself? What's left of it? Kessler's gaze hardened. A relic of an age that's over. They'll either fall in line or be replaced. We're not here to preserve their order. We're here to build a future. The officer saluted and returned to her station, leaving Kessler alone with his thoughts. He turned his attention to the central display, where Earth's image hung like a ghost. The ruined planet was a constant reminder of why they fought, of what had been lost, and what could never be regained. The hunt wasn't just about power or revenge. It was about ensuring that humanity's story didn't end in ashes. In the wider galaxy, the ripple effects of the battle were already spreading. Some species, terrified by humanity's ruthlessness, sought refuge in isolation. Others, seeing opportunity, reached out with cautious offers of cooperation. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably, and humanity stood at the center of it all. As the fleet prepared to move to its next target, Kessler spoke quietly, almost to himself. They wanted us to stop, but stopping isn't in our nature. They took everything from us, and now they'll understand what that means. The officers around him heard the words, but said nothing. There was nothing to say. Humanity's path had been set the moment Earth fell. There was no going back. The engines of the Vanguard's wrath roared to life, and the fleet disappeared into the blackness, leaving behind only silence and the faint glimmers of destruction. For the Council, for the galaxy, and for humanity itself, this was more than a victory. It was a declaration, a statement that humanity's will was unbreakable, and the hunt would only end when they decided it was over.